Why, hello, Bill.
Good morning. What is it? Mountain Cedar Day.
Oh, man. Okay, so, yeah. If you hear me breathing heavy and sniffling and or sneezing, just realize my allergies are currently on fire because...
Your nose is on fire!
The fact that we hit the same note is pretty amazing.
I think it was pretty good. I mean, if people may not agree that we hit
Happy
a note.
New Year, everyone. So anyways, I have allergies, and it's killing me right now, so it is what it is. So
It is what it is. So we're here.
Yes,
even
we
though
are.
the government is shut down.
The government is shut down. Okay, so we're going to start the conversation today. So we're kind of launching a new concept today, and it's something that's heavy on Bill and I's heart. We're calling it Over a Cup.
Over a cup.
Over a cup. That's all it is. Over a cup. And it's the
Yes.
idea of, like, how do we start to engage in conversations with people who are different than us, who have different views than us,
Yeah.
over a cup of coffee, over a cup of beer, over a cup of wine, over a cup of whiskey, whatever it is. And how
Soda.
do we do that? Soda.
Unsweet tea.
Soda.
Pop.
Maybe get the pop, yeah. Yo,
But not
betcha.
juice. Not juice. Every diet right now is non-juice. You can't juice on diets. Well, I mean, I guess you could juice stuff, but not like you're not supposed to have like fruit juice and stuff, right?
Because of all the sugar?
I think so.
Okay.
That's fair.
That would make sense.
So maybe just we care about you, so just don't drink juice.
Yeah, see, yeah, that's me. So,
Oh, that was gross.
you know, sorry.
It's okay,
Sorry.
though.
So, no, and so obviously we have this big issue that's going on right now with the border, and the government is shut down.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but it seems like our culture has become, how do you say the word? Divided.
That's a really good way to put our society right now.
And it's happened in the past. I mean, you think about the Vietnam War.
Yeah. Yeah.
Society was divided.
Yeah,
Definitely strong opinions.
Yeah.
And it got pretty violent at times. You have the
Absolutely.
civil rights movement. There
Absolutely.
was division, and it got pretty violent. So this is not uncommon to
Correct.
us as a nation.
Correct.
But with social media and our isolation as individuals on the rise, I think it's taking on some unique tenor, if you will.
Yeah.
Some unique flavor where I'm going to be intrigued to see how we as a nation pull out of this one.
You know, people talk about Jordan Peterson is the buzz right now, and
Can I tell you something?
what's that?
I got a man crush on him.
Do you?
I watch his videos all the time, dude.
So I mean, some people love him, some people hate him, some people disagree with him. But it's okay. I that's a whole nother subject. But I mean,
I know.
you can
I
continue.
know. Well, no, I just say, like, I get it. I get why some people dislike him. But listen to the dude. There's so much bad information about this guy out there that if you just buy into whatever, your side is saying about the guy, like, investigate him. Listen to him. Don't listen to the soundbite that's cherry-picked and then, caveated by 35 minutes of explanation. Listen to the dude. And I would say the same thing on either side. There are some phenomenal deep thinkers on the Democrat side and some phenomenal deep thinkers on the Republican side.
Yeah.
And I don't even know where he lands where it comes on the political spectrum. With technology the way it is, we cannot be lazy in engaging in these conversations. We have to start to do the homework ourselves and figure out what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of nutshelling everything that we're saying today. It's perfect. It's perfect. But he makes a statement in this concept about tribes, and very much so that if I was to have one word that I would just say, like even if I was just to use the words Donald Trump, if I just posted those, and I didn't say anything else, there would be a slew of comments as to good and bad. And all I said was his name. No one knows if I'm for or against him. I'm still not even going to say that right now, if I'm for or against him, because it immediately divides people. And so I was recently on a trip to Korea.
A little perspective from across the pond.
It really was. In fact, I had become friends with someone across the pond who is a BBC,
wow, throwing out the rock star.
Yeah, there I was hanging out with the BBC the other day, getting interviewed on TV. Fantastic.
Yeah, he is a junior director or junior, I don't know. That's how much I know about it. But I loved his heart. And, so here we are spending 10 days together. And, you find out he is a Democrat. And then at the same table, literally right next to me, is a staunch Republican.
Right.
And so we're having these conversations, and it just brought up this idea.
Okay, time for a second.
Go for it.
why was just the word Democrat thrown out there, but then we had to qualify conservative or Republican with staunch? It
It's
happens
funny how
in
that
no
works.
location all the time. It's everywhere. But Democrat is just like, oh, they're Democrat. But the other side has to be like, oh, they're a reasonable conservative, or they're a staunch conservative.
Well, I would say on both sides, he was a staunch Democrat and a staunch Republican, both of them, because I was sitting there having breakfast and they're having conversation,
Right.
and my IQ is going down because they're so smart talking over me that I'm like, I'm just gonna eat my whatever egg and kimchi together, somehow making that taste good, and so here I am having this conversation, but it made me realize as I grew to really know him. Actually grew to love him. He's a great guy, and he loves people. He is not he's not for abortion. He is not for same-sex marriage. He loves those people who battle with that, but he's trying to help the destitute. As I listened to him, I learned more and more about a whole other world that I didn't know about.
right.
We were even talking about this one group of people called the Uyghurs. And it's
Okay,
like,
I was unfamiliar with that
Yeah.
phrase, the Uyghurs.
Yeah.
Please define it for us.
okay, so the Uyghurs are essentially Chinese Muslims. And so in a small mindset, in my small mindset, years ago, I would hear something that says, for example, these Uyghurs right now in China are in prisoner of war camp. Well, not prisoner of war camps. They are in like Holocaust-esque like internment camps.
Right.
A million of them.
Because the Chinese government does not care about the religion specific.
They're just
It's not
against.
anti-Christian. It's not anti. It's like if you acknowledge anything supreme above the government,
Correct.
you are the one that's going to be persecuted. And so we as Christians have this very interesting dynamic in North America, because we can sometimes have a very negative view towards other religions.
Yeah.
And what we're realizing in China is if they're doing that to our Muslim, I'm going to say brothers, because
Neighbors.
well, let's use that. Our
Friends,
Muslim
whatever.
neighbors. What does it mean for us? And so it goes back to Bonhoeffer and what he said about the Nazis. First, they came for the handicapped,
Yep.
and we said nothing. And then they came for the Jews, and we said nothing. And then they came for the homosexual, and we said nothing. And now they came for us, and no one's left to speak.
No one's left to speak. In fact, I just started reading, I started reading Night by Eli Wiesel. It's a great book about the Holocaust.
Yeah.
And I'm reading this, and he literally was talking about that they would just come in, and all of a sudden, one day, half the town was gone. They were literally marching them
Could
out.
you imagine?
I couldn't imagine. And there was so much shock. But then by the time that they had to leave, there was no one else to even watch them leave, as papers are flying in the air and, piles of clothes are around, and, valuable items from people's memories are just sitting in the street, and they're just walking away. And so I guess I say all this because the same thing happening in China is I didn't even know that this was going on until I had a conversation with someone else that I would have normally never had a conversation with, just because they weren't part of my circle. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so it opened up a heart for me, for us to begin this conversation the last couple months about what does it look like to begin to engage others that are not like us in conversation. Because,
I think we know. We just yell, scream, shout, and then figure out how we can make fun of them, and then make fun of them, and then create a hashtag about them.
Correct.
And then just feel good about ourselves because we're so much better than them. That's... So, thanks for listening to Podcast World. We finished it.
Yeah, we're done.
Are you saying there's a better way?
There might be, even when I'm thinking about Jordan Peterson, he's talking about tribes. He said tribes have a hard time warring with each other when they listen to each other. So that even if I was to say those words or to have a phrase or something, because again, I look back and I know we're kind of circling all around, but so let me bring this back around circle. But these Uyghurs, these Muslim Uyghurs that are in China, I years ago might say, well, bless God, they're getting their just desserts as Muslims, and I'm like, wow, and the small-minded bigot in me is
Right.
getting smacked around now by the listening, older, hopefully more attentive to the feet of Jesus individual, to say that's not the heart of Jesus,
Right.
because he doesn't just see Muslims, he sees those who could be his children in the Lord if someone was to help them see the truth.
Right.
So I guess I'm going, we want to meet Travis and myself. We want to help change the paradigm.
Correct. And I think I would throw out there, this is a paradigm that you see, and we can stand at a distance and say, it's just a political conversation. It's just a political paradigm, and blah, 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 blah. The reality is the same thing's happening in families,
Yeah.
and the same thing's happening in church.
Yes.
And we have got to learn how to engage people and value people who are different than us with a lot more humility, because let's be honest, we think we know it all, and we don't know half of it.
Yeah.
And be able to listen, and be able to, from time to time, change our opinion, and that gets
Yes.
harder the older we are, but it needs to happen. One of the things that you almost hear, I don't want to say you almost hear all the time, because anyways, the urban legend is this, that you have your wonderful son or daughter that has your same worldview, and they go off to college, and within one semester,
Yeah.
they've become a radical communist, bra-burning, bra-wearing, whatever,
Yes. Either end, either side of the spectrum.
Right, right. And
Or if they, guys, the bra, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? So your son may come home too. We don't know.
Right. It's always that first Thanksgiving, and they
Yeah.
come in and they, basically are like, Mom and Dad, you're so close-minded, and so it happens in families too.
Yeah.
Right. And I literally know families that have disowned people because political views have changed so much, and instead of realizing, well, you're still a family member, I may not agree with you, but every time we get together, we're going to argue,
Yeah.
and I think there's a better way. There's a Jesus way that we can engage in that. And that's what our heart is.
Yeah.
We want to go the Jesus way. And so as we look at Jesus engaging and encountering people who have different opinions, different thoughts, different religious views than them, he went about it in a very specific manner that I think we could learn from if we're humble enough.
Yeah.
Because here's the deal. We're obsessed with winning
Yeah.
at all costs,
Yeah.
and it's destroying a lot of things.
Yeah.
It's destroying our civility. It is destroying our churches. It is destroying a lot of things. And at some point, we have to sit down and say, maybe listening at all costs is the win, rather than actually winning and then making an enemy.
So I guess our challenge that we're gonna kick off in the next couple weeks as we kind of walk through this is the idea of each of us taking time in the week to, over a cup, have a conversation with someone who's not like us, to begin to walk through this unlike-minded pursuit.
Right.
Because we see Jesus in the scriptures, and Jesus spent a lot of time with people that were of the same mindset as him.
Right.
People who were in prostitution, people who were drunkards, people who were just flat-out sinners. In fact, again, we say it again, that's how he was called Jesus, friend of sinners.
Corrupt government officials.
Correct. Nicodemus. Corrupt
religious leaders.
Yeah, and so Nicodemus, who had his pursuit, who wanted to pursue the Lord, all the way down to Zacchaeus, who was hated by everybody.
Right.
And so you see all these different sides of, like, man, he loved the lovable, he loved the unlovable, and he just listened. He had conversations with them. So we wanted to bring up a couple of easy principles in the midst of doing this,
I like
so that
principles.
you're like, what does that look like to have over a cup? So Bill, I don't want to just walk in there and be like, wearing my like MAGA hat, you know what I'm saying, and or whatever you are on the other side or whatever. So
Or the walls divide shirt.
yes, something like so, but walking in with a more balanced heart,
Right.
to want to listen to people. So
Right, and I would say the main thought behind that is, living life in an echo chamber seems enjoyable at first, but you miss out on the best parts of life.
yeah,
Because bottom line is, people, I don't care what their political, they're fascinating.
yeah.
And this is rule one that I've learned a long time ago. People genuinely love to talk about themselves.
Yeah.
And so if you go into a situation or a conversation and are genuinely like, we may disagree on X, Y, and Z, but I guarantee there's something fascinating about this person.
Yeah.
That I want to dig into, which will give me understanding on how they're coming at this argument or coming at this position,
Correct.
which may give me new understanding because I come at it from a different angle. And if I can understand them and where they're coming at it, maybe, just maybe, I can get some new understanding. But more importantly, I get the biggest win. I have a better understanding of the individual
Yeah.
who's sitting before me. And unfortunately, our 140 character Twitter feed doesn't allow much of that to happen.
That's very cool.
And that's why we're saying this is not a Facebook conversation. This is face-to-face,
physical
conversation. It's a physical conversation over a physical cup of liquid beverage.
There's something about looking at someone in the eye and having to share a conversation with them versus just casting truth on them through comments.
Agreed.
So as we talk about this, we're going, here's a few principles or truths that we saw as we talked more about this, as we saw Jesus, as we looked into scriptures, and as we just kind of had personal interaction with some of these in our own lives, of some 5 simple principles about how to have this conversation.
Principle number 1.
I like that. That was really good.
Thank you.
Is to listen.
What?
To listen.
I'm not going to do it again.
I know. I almost wanted you to. So just simply listening. So
Golly.
Walk in and don't have to interrupt, share their story, interrupt their story, but listen to completion for a period of time.
Okay. Sounds so easy. But in honesty, it's so hard because here's what happens. I guarantee this is what happens. You get in the conversation, your emotions start to get riled up, and you stop listening because you're more concerned about thinking about your next answer or your next question rather than listening to what they're actually saying. And that's what we mean, like listening or pretending like we're listening, like hearing them is one thing.
Yeah.
Listening to them is a completely different thing. You want to know the key to if you're truly listening is follow-up questions.
Well, that's
if you're asking follow-up questions, then you're probably listening. If you're just giving rebuttals, then you're not listening. You're simply hearing. And what we're saying is the time of hearing is done. It's time to start to listen and learn how to ask follow-up questions to gain better understanding. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I was trying to do that right there. So I was just trying to just listen and not try to have the next thing.
Yeah.
And it actually helps because you really get to hear the individual. You get to hear their story because sometimes you miss what they're really trying to say to you because you've grabbed one little part of what they've said.
Right.
And now you're ready to crucify them for that little piece.
And let's be honest, none of us are masters of communication.
Yeah.
And so every one of us can, from time to time, say something incorrect. Like, we may mean to say this, but it comes out as this, and you interpret it as this, and now there's and if we're hearing, we latch onto that and we crucify, rather than listening and say, well, wait a second, did you really mean X, Y, and Z?
Yeah.
And it gives them a chance to say, no, that sounds stupid. I wouldn't mean X, Y, and Z. I would actually mean Z, and I apologize for, that's actually valuing the other person than trying to win and put a stake in it.
That's it. It's kind of like, that's exactly what grace looks like in human form. Because what you're doing is you're not allowing your agenda to overtake this. You're going, I'm going to, and this may be it. Listening means casting grace on the other individual.
Principle number 2.
Leave your agenda behind. Don't make it personal.
Okay, so unpack that just a little bit. Because I feel like if you leave your agenda behind, what are you going to talk about? Because there's got to be something that you're talking about which would fall into the terms of an agenda. So what are you actually saying with this principle number 2?
Leaving your preconceived concept of who this individual is out of the story until you hear the whole story.
Right.
So if I was to, and I do this all the time, I pull up to a red light and I see a homeless person. There are at least a dozen stories that I could say about this person. Oh, they're a drug addict. There's some guy who dropped out of school. They watch too much YouTube. I don't know what their story is.
They were addicted to Fortnite at some point.
Exactly. Or they were just lazy. But I don't know the whole story of how some of these people that I've met whose both parents were killed in a car accident when they were 6, and they jumped around the foster system because no one in their family wanted them. They were never a bad kid, but just the environment around them caused them to. And then they were abused when they were 9 by one of their foster parents, and by 11 they were on drugs and were never given a chance. And so here I am casting less of a chance at them instead of just listening. So I guess what I'm saying is walking in without that concept, walking in to go, I want to just hear you because God has made you a certain way, and this is
with
the
a
outcome.
certain story, and you have a certain past.
Correct.
And to know you means I need to be willing to listen to and understand that as much as possible.
Yes.
Interesting. I like that.
So kind of walking in with that mindset. which then actually jumps into number 3.
Principle number 3.
Assume the best.
That is so hard, and yet, we in fact, we had this conversation today. So we started school back from Christmas break. All of our kids, were staying up till 12, midnight,
Yeah.
same thing, redundancy, you know what I'm saying? And now they're waking up at 6:30 a.m., and first day, everyone's okay because there's a little bit of adrenaline, going back to school. By this point, everyone is toast.
Yeah, everyone hates everybody.
No one has any ability. Yeah, everyone hates everyone. And so something happened this morning, and tears were being shed, and everything was going crazy. And finally, I was like, all right, guys, here's the deal. When we hear things today, we have to assume the best. Everyone's tired. Extra grace is needed.
Yeah.
So assume the best. And this is true again, this goes back to we're not expert communicators. There are very few people in our culture that are. And so when someone says something, if you assume the worst, you're going to come at them with pitchforks and torches, and you're going to be like, you're the worst person ever. You're Satan.
Yeah.
Or Nazi, or whatever the cool language is that we just brand people with without even digging into it.
Yeah.
If you assume the best, that gives you at least a platform to ask questions, to get a better understanding and say, oh, wait a second. You're not Hitler. Oh, you're not racist.
Yeah.
You just happen to have a political view that has some different nuances than what I did before. And so, and anytime, it's one of those principles that makes a huge difference in the business world. It makes a huge difference in your personal world. And I think it makes a huge difference over the cup when you assume the best with assuming that they actually genuinely care about humanity and other people.
Well, the more conversations I have with people who are of a different political affiliation or a different belief at some degree, I find that we have more in common than we do not in common. We both want to help people. We both want to see people succeed.
Right.
We both want to be successful in what we do, and we really do care about each other. If my car breaks down, it doesn't. I'm not like, it doesn't matter. People are still going to come together. I guess what I'm saying is I've seen points where people are broken, are like broken, but I would say that people come together at times of need.
Right.
When the flood happened. When the flood happens, you find yourself, like for example, when the hurricanes happened in Houston.
Right.
Nobody went down there and knocked on the door and said, "Hey, listen, are you a Democrat or Republican?"
Right.
They just said, "What do you need?"
Right.
When Mother Teresa of Calcutta was helping people, I love it. There was never a thought of rich or poor, young or old. It was hurting.
Yes.
And she met the need where it was needed to be. When they helped people die with dignity, they didn't say, well, listen, if you were of this affiliation, we want you. They were say, rich and old, rich and poor, young and old, we just want you to come and know that you're loved by somebody.
Right.
So I believe that if we can help assume the best in someone, we're casting grace and we're loving them the way that Jesus would love them.
Love it. Love it. I think that makes a huge difference. And I would encourage us to do that. And it's really an act of humility. Arrogance, you go in and you're assuming a few things. One, they're not as smart as you.
Yeah.
And two, they're dumb for not listening to me. And three, they must be dumb.
Yeah.
So
End of story. You must
assume
be
the
an idiot.
best. Yeah. Be a servant. Assume the best.
You almost like, and without jumping to the next one before, you are beginning to rehumanize an individual.
Yes.
They're not just a statement. They're not just a belief. They're a human being with flesh and bone who has value. And God sees that value, and he wants you to help drag that out of that person.
Correct.
As his ambassador.
All right, so moving on. Principle number 4.
Can you have a cold next week, too? Because that sounds really cool.
It's my Barry White voice.
It is.
Hey, ladies. Why don't you slide over here on the couch?
And your wife is like, ain't gonna happen.
I guarantee she's saying it ain't gonna happen.
Ain't gonna happen.
Nope.
Do you know how much we have to do around here? But you're still assuming the best, which is great.
Laundry. There's dishes to be done. And I'm all like, hey, baby. If I called her baby, she'd probably punch me.
Do we never not think about sex, though? This isn't number 4, sorry, but it's a little rabbit trail.
No, so let's go back to principle number 4.
There we go. end the conversation understanding the individual better. Or I would say end the conversation knowing the person better.
Right. And so the heart behind this one is there's nothing wrong with going into an argument or debate desiring to win that argument or debate.
Yeah.
But if that's your only goal, it's pretty shallow. You
Yeah.
can do better.
Yeah.
Like, one of the goals should actually be understanding. Now, if someone's just throwing out political platitudes and hasn't really wrestled with and thought through the process and thought through the conversation and thought through the different issues, then that's one thing, and that's going to go to our warning at the end. Find a person of peace. And if they're just an ideologue that's just coming in without even thinking about it and just screaming and yelling, walk away. Do not throw your pearls before swines. Don't engage in that conversation because it's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
But if you genuinely have someone who's willing to listen, converse, and dialogue on this stuff, then you need to, the goal or the big win is they're a fascinating person. I may not
Yeah.
agree with them, but I genuinely think that's a fascinating story that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think everyone has a story that's worth listening to. And, you may never agree with this individual. But if your win, like Travis was saying, if your win is to know this person better, you can then walk away, and it leads you to number 5.
Principle number 5.
Pray and ask God what He wants you to learn
What?
from that conversation.
What?
Yes, very crazy.
What?
Pray and ask God to teach you something about this. Because when I walked away from my buddy, who is a BBC,
Time.
yes,
I'm pretty sure that Jesus at some point said, only hang out with people who you agree with, look like you, act like you, and talk like you. And
that
then,
sounds pretty honest. That
then
sounds
build
pretty,
a mighty fortress and separate yourself from them and move to Utah. Isn't that? I'm pretty sure that's in the Bible somewhere.
It's there. I think it's there.
I think it's in the book of
Read it. It's in
Hezekiah.
It's in Second Opinions.
Second Opinions.
But I think that
The cold medicine's kicking
exactly.
in.
Ask God what He wants you to learn, because there's something. See, this is where Proverbs 27:17 talks about iron sharpens iron.
Yep.
So we need to allow ourselves. That isn't just one side. We don't just walk into a discipleship relationship even and go, I'm going to learn. I'm going to teach you all my stuff. It is literally us getting sharpened as the other gets sharpened.
Right.
Now, if they don't want to accept the sharpening, great. You can walk away and go, God, what do I need to learn about this? How can I be more patient? How can I be more loving? When I walked away from my buddy who, from BBC, and I heard about nations that I've never heard of and people groups that I've never heard of, and I went, I have a lot to learn.
Right.
That was valuable enough for me. And we're growing to be friends. This guy's an amazing guy. He has a big heart for national change, for world change in the name of Christ.
Can you text him?
We Facebook because it's like different time zones. But he's a lot of fun.
That's pretty cool.
And he talks with the English accent, and I love it. I love it. And so, I already was making fun of him with his English accent. It was beautiful.
You're not making fun of him. You're acknowledging that he's different. And
I was speaking
You're
his
assuming
language.
the best about his language.
I was assuming the best.
So
as we wrap this up, I guess the verse that comes to mind is Proverbs 15:1.
Yes.
Which talks about a soft answer turns away wrath, but harsh words stir up anger.
Oh, yeah.
There's enough anger out here. And I'm not just like peace, love, and joy, but I'm like, there's so much anger in our world. Why can't we just, over a simple cup of coffee, help create change in people's lives? Cheers. And so why can't we take the time to go, you're worth my $4.80 for a Starbucks, whatever, to sit down over a cup and say, hey, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah.
And let them share their heart, and then you get to share yours, and then you walk away and go, hey, that was nice. Let's try and do this again. Or just like Travis said, you may find someone in your warning you may want to share that may cause you to go, this is my one and only conversation with them. But there's some wisdom in that.
So Jesus, when he was sending out the 12 disciples 2 by 2, you never go alone on this. You always want a cover man, which I think is an important principle we'll talk about next week.
Yes.
He was sending them out 2 by 2, and he talked about finding a house or family or a town of peace. And I think that's essential for us. There are certain people who are open to the conversation, and we want to invest in those conversations. There are certain people who just don't want, they think they want to, but at the end of the day, they're not willing to listen, and they're not a person of peace. And so those people, you simply say, love you, pray for you, and move on. You got to move on. Do not invest time and energy, because if they are not ready and the Spirit has not done what only the Spirit can do in their hearts to be ready for a conversation, then you have to be willing to move on and realize this is not your fight. This is not your conversation. This is not your time. And then pray for them. And that's the other thing that I would say to remind all of us. Jesus was passionate. He didn't say isolate yourself from your enemy.
Yeah.
What did he say? Hey, go serve your enemy.
Love them.
Hey, love your enemy.
Seek them out.
And you know what? Pray for them. And I think that's a huge thing that we could, if there's nothing else, maybe that's step one. Start to pray for people on the other side of the political aisle. Start to pray for people on the other side of your religious aisle. Start to pray for people who you would consider an enemy and see what the Spirit might do in that relationship. Pray, like I'm a Packer fan, so I've learned to pray for Bears fans. It's something that I've struggled through, and I've learned how to do it. Still trying to figure out how to pray for a Minnesota fan, but it'll happen. It's growth.
It's going to happen.
It's a growth mindset. It's a growth mindset.
So I guess as we even think about this, we think about the bigger picture. We're already thinking about maybe the coworker that you have that's annoyed you,
right.
or the neighbor that you've never talked to, and you just start to say, I'm going to meet them outside when they take out their trash or when they get their mail.
Suck it up and pray for them.
But it also may be closer than that. It may be the 14-year-old in your back seat whose headphones are on, staring out the window, and you're just doing life.
Yeah.
That may be the first one you have to try this with. Hey, let's go grab a hot chocolate, or let's go grab a soda, or whatever.
I want to understand your world.
Yeah, and just listen.
Yeah.
Dad, Mom, just listen. Because I'm working on that too with my kids.
Yeah.
I've learned so much about Fortnite and how the fact that Musical.ly is no longer Musical.ly, it's TikTok. And people are like, Bill, you're so old because that happened like 6 months ago or whatever it was. And I'm like, I'm hearing these stories and invading my kids' lives by just listening.
Yeah.
So this is already helping me and my family.
Awesome.
I know it's going to help yours. I know it's going to help your world.
So, Over the Cup is the theme, and we will be back next time. God bless you guys, and we'll talk to you later.
Have a great week.